bring some information, but last but not least, Brother Obi Egbuna is a U.S. correspondent to the Herald in Zimbabwe, one of the most important papers in Africa. This man has almost single-handedly been the voice of truth and correction about one of the most vilified countries in the world. We hear about people being hungry in Zimbabwe, but we're not told that the IMF got the folks, pressed them to grow tobacco instead of food, then they turn around and blame the head of state for what they forced them to do. We don't hear that they own 50% of the land in the country that they stole through genocide. They kill hundreds of thousands of people. Then independence means we keep what we stole from you and you continue to hold the poor land. But this brother has brought truth. I'm going to have him speak for about 3 minutes and then Q&A. I want to say for Q&A, make the questions short so everyone can be addressed. Without further ado, Brother Obi, bring us some truth.
All right, brother.
Give him applause.
Good evening. Good evening. My time is short, so I'll be very quick. Zimbabwe must become for Africans what Palestine is for Arabs, what Cuba and Venezuela are for Latin Americans, and what Bolivia are for indigenous people. A rallying point to unify around no matter where we are on what Christians call God's green earth. We come together to deal with this question on the 50th anniversary of the assassination of Patrice Lumumba, on the 25th anniversary of the bombing of Libya by Ronald Reagan, because we know Barack Obama did his best Ronald Reagan impersonation when he bombs Libya. So we know that this is the reason. And this is the 45th anniversary of the coup, CIA coup on Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah. And that is connected to Zimbabwe because imperialism always seeks to deny a country's most positive attributes. Attacking Zimbabwe when they have a 97% literacy rate, Africa's highest. Attacking Zimbabwe when they are the model for women's empowerment on the African continent, where the first woman to be in an African parliament in modern history at the age of 24 is Zimbabwe's vice president today, Amai Joyce Mujuru, Africa's first modern woman vice president. The most significant decline in HIV/AIDS in southern Africa, the region most plagued by the pandemic. This is who they're after. You must know the makeup of this administration in relationship to the Zimbabwe question. Secretary of State Hillary Rodham Clinton is a co-sponsor of the Zimbabwe Democracy Economic Recovery Act, the sanctions against Zimbabwe. Vice President Joe Biden is a co-sponsor of the sanctions against Zimbabwe in their inception. Susan Rice, the UN ambassador, got her doctorate in Zimbabwe and is the most passionate advocate of AFRICOM on this planet right now. Johnny Carson, the Assistant Secretary for African Affairs, was the ambassador to Zimbabwe under the Clinton administration. And President Obama, when he was Senator Obama, on March 8, 2007, wrote George Bush a letter, please don't lift sanctions on Zimbabwe until the dark cloud of Robert Mugabe is ousted from power. Sanctions on Zimbabwe are diplomatic terrorism at a moment where we are marching to the drum of the white left, who want you to think that bombing and guns and traditional warfare is the most detrimental thing to Africa. These sanctions, the same ones that left 2 million people dead in the streets of Iraq, these type of sanctions that have left $97 billion on the table that the Cuban Revolution does not have to maintain its programs for a country where African people are 60 million. That is what is at stake. And your Congressional Black Caucus, every one of them voted for these sanctions 10 years ago, with the exception of 5. Cynthia McKinney, Corin Brown of Florida, Bobby Rush of Illinois, Carolyn Kilpatrick, and the late Stephanie Tubbs Jones. But guess what? They abstained. Not one member of the Congressional Black Caucus voted against these sanctions. 9 white Republicans and 2 white Democrats. So we're saying today, getting those sanctions lifted on Zimbabwe on their 10th anniversary must become the strongest stand we take in terms of dealing with diplomatic warfare to show our maturity and to show the evolution of our resistance. as we're approaching the 50th anniversary of the blockade on Cuba come next year, implemented by John Kennedy, your grandfather's favorite white liberal. Understand the detriment of these sanctions. So I wanted to deal with that very briefly. And join me in saying one thing as loud as you can. Zimbabwe forever.
Zimbabwe forever.
Sanctions never.
Sanctions never.
Zimbabwe forever.
Zimbabwe forever.
US-EU sanctions never.
US-EU.
Lift the sanctions on Zimbabwe. Lift the chains on Africa. Thank you.
We want to end sanctions where? I only want to add, and then I'm done. Susan Rice was the sister that winked when millions died in Congo and Rwanda. This sister grinned as folks talked about millions of our people dying. Traitors wear skirts as well as pants. Right. Sisters have to be held accountable just like black men. So you got to be a real sister. It's not just because you can have a baby or God made you an African queen, but you've got to be faithful to your people like a queen. Ache, right? Now, without further ado, we're going to take questions. So, and I want to encourage, I see a brother's hand in the back. The questions are not to be a minute. Make them 30 seconds so we can answer them. And you can't ask compound. Maybe we can come back to you. So we're going to try to ask as many people questions at a time. Okay, I'm sorry.
My question, first of all, good afternoon. Good afternoon. My question goes to Dr. Ashanti. I'm proud to meet with you today because you are real African. Ashanti is a Ghanaian name. I'm proud of that. Now, my question to you is, what we're doing here today, how this can free President Laurent Gbagbo, his wife, and all his cabinet members? That's my first question. Second.
Hold on, one question. One question. Thank you.
No. That's good. Can I finish?
No, you asked a question. They gave you only one. That's what he said.
I said one question. Don't worry, you can ask it.
What we need to do to free...
hold on, respect.
Yeah, what we need to do to free President Gbagbo and his family is that we need to be demonstrating and we need to be visible. People have written lots of letters. In Philadelphia, for example, we combined with the people in New York to take out a whole page in the Amsterdam News in support of this. But what we need to do, we need to keep visible, because what they are depending on is that we will forget, and that they will languish in prison, and we need to make sure that this issue never leaves the front page. And one way we're doing today, this is it. And beautifully, if they put this on YouTube, then everybody will know that in Washington, people got together, they organized today, and we said, that President Gbagbo has to be free. There's many other things I could say about that situation, but certainly there have been more crimes committed by Ouattara than were ever committed by anybody else.
Thank you.
Okay. If you're allowed, come quickly. If you think you have a question, can you come to the center aisle? We paid for 3 mics, we have 1. Apartheid, right? Okay, it's still in business. And they took all our money, too.
Before I just talk,
go quickly. Oh, you have a comment?
I don't have a question, so my comment will just add up to the question. So if you can give me just 1 minute.
Exactly.
Okay. I'm from Sierra Leone, John Cyrus said. I live in Silver Spring. The reason why I introduced myself, I know any political gathering that we have the FBI and the CIA among us. That's right. So if you're a CIA here, go tell Obama, he already knows me, send me a letter, I disconnect myself from him. The comment I want to make, brothers and sisters, if you are here today, if you're a real Pan-African, before you leave this place, we are not asking, we didn't invite you here to come here to leave money here. But if you are leaving, please, if you have $1, anything that you have, leave it here before you go for this organization. We need economic power. Yes. If we have economic power, we'll be able to fly from here to Africa and start advocating everywhere in the African continent. Thank you very much.
Thank you. My name is Pauline Muchina, and my question is, I think I want to turn the question to all the speakers and to everybody in this room. And the question is, they have managed to turn us against each other so much that the worst enemy is us against each other. So what are we going to do to change that attitude? They are not coming to kill us, we are killing each other.
Okay. Who wants? You want? Come on, Bailey. We're going to have a Malcolmite wants to take this.
I will say that is a definite strategy, and it's up to us to resist that. We have to make our people aware of what's going on in this area and resist that. We also have to understand that a gathering like we have here today has got to become a movement. That's right. We need a movement. We don't need an organization. We need a movement, a serious Pan-Africanist, Afrocentric movement in this country. And I just want to just elicit a little bit of positive news that has happened here in D.C. in the last couple of years. One, there's been an Afro-Mexican exhibition at part of the Smithsonian Museum over in Anacostia. In the last 6 weeks here in D.C., there's been an Afro-Brazilian festival. There was an Afro-Peruvian dance company just here recently, and in the paper this week there was an article about an African hairstylist from Afro-Colombia. So there's some movement being made. What we need now is an organization that can begin to take advantage of those people who are trying to do this. I tell Randy and other people that I know that one of the things I've learned about organizing from the 1960s and 70s is that if we had 20 people in a place and 15 were ready to move and 5 were pulling back, we would spend hours trying to convince those 5. And we wasted a lot of time and a lot of energy. My thing now, if someone says to me, if we want those people who say, if you say we need to organize a Pan-Africanist movement, they say, how do we go about doing it? Right. If they say why, you say, okay, I'll talk to you later. I have no time to talk to you. At this state, when you organize, and I have learned this through heartache, you must organize first the true believers. Yes. The people who already believe. We spend hours trying to argue with. Somebody asked me today, why do we need a Pan-Africanist movement? I will say, I will talk to you later. I'm not going to spend not 1 second explaining that to you in 2011. I want those people who say, how can we go about best doing this? You know, and that's the attitude that we have to take. That we must get together and we must begin to play the intelligence game. I was saying jokingly, but it's serious. I said, is there really real African intelligence operation in the world? Are there any black people anywhere who are seriously into the whole field of intelligence and information gathering? You know, do we have like the equivalent of the American Jewish Committee, which is nothing but an intelligence operation? I've seen, they read the black press every single week. Clip out editorials and columns and then send them to their branch organizations all over the United States. Now, I've been kind of doing a personal thing. I got a whole stack of articles there that I collect out of the newspapers. And, son, will you pass the one I just saw recently? I just want to show this because, to give you almost a little joke. I opened up the Wall Street Journal this week, and I see an article, Africa, Israel buys high and sells low. Here it is on the Wall Street Journal this week. And I come to find out that Africa, Israel is an organization that was founded in South Africa by South African Jewish community in 1934. And it's a very wealthy organization involved in real estate and property. But look at the name, Africa, Israel. We have to be aware of these kinds of institutions. We need people, and I'll be prepared to work with anybody on this. We need people who will monitor the Washington Post, the New York Times, and the Wall Street Journal, and check every day to see what they are saying about the continent and about us, and keep them so that when we speak and go around, we'll have concrete information that we are passing out and exchanging. So I would just like to suggest that we think about that and recognize that there's a little bit of movement going. When you start talking about the South Americans have traditionally denied the African connections. Right. The South Americans have traditionally denied it. So when you start talking, see an Afro-Brazilian festival, an Afro-Peruvian dance company, that's what they call themselves, an Afro-Colombian hairstylist, and an Afro-Mexican exhibition, there's a movement going, folks, we need to take advantage of it.
I'm going to say to the sister, I always tell people there are two tribes. They're the we Negroes and the I Negroes. The we Negroes are for unity, and we must dominate the I Negroes who only care about themselves. That's right. We need to stop looking for a consensus with the ones who don't get it. I'm going to make one point, and I'm done, Yaka. When you do good, it comes back to you. This week, I met my relatives from Sierra Leone. We've been divided 235 years. Their family escaped with the British and got to Africa, but it took me 20 years. But we're together. It's persistence and your relationships and where you go to church, where you spend your money. Everything that you do has to be around Africa and building it up, and it may grow, but in increments. No one can stop us.
My name is Onya Makaya, and I'm from Southern Africa. And I guess he's busy talking now, but I want to touch on something, so sorry if I go over time. Sorry. Mr. Peter Bailey, you spoke about the documentary babies, and I'd like to disagree with you. I'm so sorry, but one of the babies, the one that you said was the African baby, was from Namibia. It was, sorry, his name was Ponijao. And while I agree, yes, the African baby was shown as, you know, his parents were not using cell phones, not 21st century, I was very proud because that baby, of all the babies that they shown, was the first to speak, the first to walk, the first to be socialized in society. Why? Because he's a Himba, and the Himbas have never capitulated to Western influence. And that's what I saw. While white people were trying to use books and whatnot, and nannies and other things to teach their children, that little girl spoke and did everything before any of the other babies. The second was in rural Mongolia. And now these are the things, sorry, but these are the things that I think haven't been touched on. This meeting was had 200 years ago in our ethnic groups. I'm a Zulu and a Sotho. My leaders had this exact same meeting because they had the exact same problems. Our problem is that we're not looking to what they did. We don't. We see it as old. We talk about our youth. Go on YouTube and see our youth. Our youth looks like BET. They don't know, and that's our problem. It's not their problem, it's our problem. And while I'm at it, I'd like to extend quickly to influence. There's a great book called Black Marxism by Professor Cedric Robinson, and it actually doesn't talk about Black Marxism. What it does, it talks about liberation movements in Africa ever since the dawn of time. Ever since the dawn of time. And what it did is it gave us, it's a clear Bible, if I may use that word, for how we can progress, how we can do things. Not always be reactionary, but to be African and to not be ashamed when we're not westernized and we're like the Himba who do things exactly as Africans.
Thank you. I wanted her to speak earlier. She said she didn't have anything to say. She's got a lot to say. Sister.
Thank you. My name is Cora Gibson, and I've been a teacher in the District of Columbia for the last 24 years. I teach French, and I teach Africa. And it's been a tremendous task to teach Africa, a real version of Africa, meaning all of the totality of that which is African. I just got back from Gabon 2 weeks ago, and one thing I'm always reminded is that languages can die. I have friends my age, they cannot speak their native language, which means their children cannot speak their native language. In fact, my comment is that your children, because you are here now, a part of American society, teach your children African language, because African language is African culture and history, and that's all I want to share with you. So this is a forum to do so when we talk about liberating Africa. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, acting like Sarkozy. I heard you. Okay. This brother here, Alexander Yemek from Cameroon, is head of the Africa Diaspora Movement. Because we mentioned holding up our young people, we stopped the question and answer to highlight this very young but very excellent fighter who's here with us today. Before I have him come, I want to say that one of the greatest moments in my life was to land in Ouagadougou just after Thomas Sankara took power, to just be in Burkina for a few minutes when it was truly liberated. It's one of the greatest moments in my life. Family members of the martyred Pan-Africanist leader, prophet, bar none of the last 30 years, Thomas Sankara, are here. If they could just stand so we can acknowledge you and say that we love you, and we're going to get those folks. The days are numbered for the ones who took power. We thank you for coming. Please give them more. We thank you for coming with us and honoring us. We want to remember that Thomas Sankara got into trouble because he went to Harlem to embrace African Americans. That example needs to be repeated by Africans here. We need to reach out and know each other. We're not doing a great job, but we can do better. Come on, brother.
Thank you very much. I think
3 minutes max.
Okay, thanks. I think this will probably be the last time you guys clap, because for some of you who've been watching my YouTube,
You can hold it. I trust you. You can hold it.
Okay. I'm pretty straightforward, and I don't speak to please people because we're in a very hard time. I just released my last video. That was sometimes 2 days ago, and I named it "Obama Hates Black People."
It's true.
And it wasn't to address Obama really hating black people, but it was to address the problem of racism that a lot of people run away from. Racism. The question is, and I asked that, was, is it really about racism? Actually, the answer is no. It has never been about racism. Never, actually. Never. It is about Africa. It is about what we black people inherited from Africa. That's what it is about. And I mentioned that many white people are fighting with us African people. That is true. We cannot ignore that. We can't. I say that slavery didn't start with white people. It started in Africa.
No.
Slavery, when European people came to Africa, they met leaders who had servants who were serving them. And it wasn't the same, it wasn't what we saw today. That's not what it was. We had these leaders, kings and queens, had servants around them who were serving them. I am African, and I'm telling you this, even until today, we still have leaders in Africa who slave people. And white people just happened to fall into what was going on in Africa. They found out that it was a lot of money in Africa. It was a lot to make in Africa. And then we needed to get rid of those people. They needed to get rid of them. So they started exchanging. They started making exchange. They were giving whatever they had. And African people were, and African leaders, those who sold African Americans, actually, to Europe, were giving them black people also because they were impressed with what they were getting. And they just continued to do what was already happening. They started commerce of slavery. It was like, oh, okay, we can use these black people. Yes, we're taking them, let's take them to Europe so they can build our country. And they developed slavery. It wasn't what it is today. It was just a different culture the way we were living. And that continues today. That continues today because today in Côte d'Ivoire is Alassane Ouattara who's killing people. Today in Cameroon, it is Paul Biya who's killing people. He can say no. He doesn't have to do this. He doesn't have, Blaise Compaoré didn't have to kill the former president who was there. The truth is that if today they give us money, millions of dollars, if they give me $10 million today, would I still talk good about Africa and they tell me insult African people? How would I act? That's the question. Because today we talk because we are not in power. We don't know what it is to be in power. That is the truth. We stand up today and we speak about these things. I flew from Texas today. I've worked for the government for 9 years in the United States. I've helped a lot of people in immigration. I've seen so much. And I decided to do this. I came from Texas this morning because I had to be here because my good friend invited me. But the truth has to be told. We are killing each other. And many and African American, I'm glad that you guys are here because we need this black and white thing is a distraction. It is a big distraction. What is really about? They're trying to distract us so they can take over Africa and recolonize Africa. So they can keep you American people into voting for Democrat, thinking that they'll give us a whole bunch of stuff. That way Africa is being recolonized so that you who are here don't know what is going on. The mainstream media is the first enemy. We need to beat that. We need to inform people about what is going on in Côte d'Ivoire. We need to tell them that Alassane Ouattara is cutting people's head in Côte d'Ivoire. We don't know that here. And I will finish by saying that because I didn't have enough time here, but I'll finish by saying that on August 20, we are standing up and we will rally here next to the White House is at the Ellipse. We're expecting to have thousands of people, and disagreement is okay. It is okay to disagree. But what is not okay is to sit down and not rebuild Africa. We need disagreement so that we can move forward. Thank you, my brother.
Thank you. All right. I'm going to defer my 1 minute to Mr. Bailey.
What we just heard is a classic example.
Hold on, come, so people can hear. And calm now. Hold on.
What?
Okay. Take exactly one.
Okay.
Take exactly one, Elder.
What we just heard is a classic example of what I said about when you try to organize a movement, you organize the people who believe in what you're trying to do. And any black person who say that it is about race does not believe in what we're trying to do. Now, I'm not saying that there may be another forum where you can have, a variety of. This is for people who believe in Pan-Africanism. If you don't believe in that, then you have no business at this meeting. Now, that's the bottom line. There may be another meeting called where we'll ask for a variety of opinions and a whole wide, but this is for people who believe in the necessity of people of African descent throughout the world getting together to protect our interests. And what that young man just said, everybody up here has spoken about the fact that there are Africans killing other Africans. Everybody spoke about that. Nobody tried to hide that fact. Just like I don't try to hide the fact that the biggest killer of African Americans in this country today are other African Americans. I don't try to hide that. That's a reality. But we know the reasons behind these things. But like I say, man, if this is not the forum for a wide variety of opinions, this is a forum for people who believe in the concept of Pan-Africanism and the importance of it. There may be another forum sometime in the future for a wide variety of opinions, but this is not the one. As far as I'm concerned, this is the forum for people who believe in Pan-Africanism and who believe in the necessity of people of African descent all over the world getting together.
Brothers and sisters. Yeah, I'm going to bring you in.
Because I know you're going to give another lecture. Let me just. I'm going to be real quick and real simple.
No, you take 5 minutes.
Yeah. No, I'm going to take 2 minutes. Let me just take 2 minutes. First of all, there is no record in Africa of any society in Africa where the principal mode of production was the enslavement of other people. That's right. That's true. What example? The only example that you can even perhaps suspect is one that was brought by the Portuguese, and that was Dahomey. But there is no example in Africa where slavery was a principal mode of production. That came into Africa from the Arabs and from the Europeans. And if you go to the southern part of Africa, you see less of it because there were less influences. Now, were there Africans who participated with the Arabs and Europeans? Yes, there were collaborators. You always have collaborators with the enemies of Africa. You have collaborators in the United States. And in South Africa, they had black people who were in the police force. That's right. So you will have collaborators. But here's what I don't like, and I can never stand silent for it. You can never take the onus off of white enslavement of African people. You can never do that. And you never raise that kind of question. Why you raise that kind of question? Yes, there were Africans who in fact participated in using other Africans in some way or the other. But the principal motive, particularly when you talk about it in America, you're talking about 50 million people, in some estimations, uprooted from the continent of Africa. That was not done by black people. That was done because Europe itself had as its own mode of gaining capital and influence the idea that Africans should be kidnapped from the continent of Africa and taken to other places. Africans didn't build ships. The Africans did not insure ships. They didn't build the guns. Now, were there Africans employed as guides? Yes. But I just want to say this. I've written about this. Go read my book, The History of Africa. Read my website, www.asante.net. Go read up on this stuff. Don't take the Henry Louis Gates way. That's the wrong way. Don't give me that stuff. If there were Africans who participated, most often they participated with white folk and with Arabs. Africa was not a continent where slavery was a principal mode.
Okay, I got to make an announcement, but allow me to make a comment on this. We've been colonized. It wasn't just a physical form of it, it was a mental as well. So it's a process of recognition that's mental. So don't take offense. I appreciate it. Okay, I'm a Gaviat, so I come from that school. That's good. I just want to make an announcement. Since even the Southern Ivory Coast, there's been many Ivorians here that organized in a little group, and we organized a group called what's the name of it? Clique PanAfrican, which means the Pan-African and Ivorian resistant movement. And we're going to have a conference on the 6th of August, and we're going to have Brian Baker from the National, Answer Coalition, and we might have Minister Akbar Mohammed for the Nation of Islam. He even invited us to participate at the march on the 13th of August. So I call all Ivorians to come, because it might give us an opportunity to speak. So please come to the conference on the 8th of August. 6th of August. We're going to celebrate our independence because we're still independent in our spirit. Where? Right, thank you. Where would it be?
Where?
I live in Uganda and East Africa. I'm just visiting here. And I have the opportunity to ask Dr. Asante a very short question. Do you think the endless civil wars in Africa have an effect on Pan-Africanism?
is two ways. One, there needs to be an African ideological movement. In other words, what is the ideology for Africa? What drives Africa? You know, people can say that there are different things that drive different national polities or states. It could be Marxism. It could be capitalism. What is the driving force? And I have argued that an Afrocentric ideological position taken by African people, where you have the protection of the smallest minority group on Africa, where the idea is, how do we protect the smallest group, not the largest group, but in any region of Africa? How do you protect that ethnic group? And I don't use the word tribe. I think it's a negative word. Right. But how do you protect the smallest ethnic group in a region? If you protect the smallest ethnic group, you protect the large. Right. That is the thing. So we have to drive it that way.
Quick questions. We're taking 4 more and we'll close it. Go ahead. Oh, I'm going to hold it.
Oh, okay. All right. That's fine. Work with me. I'm a proud African from Mali, and I was born in Timbuktu, where civilization started. And in Timbuktu was built the first universities in the world. That's where education started. So I have to say, I'm not a Republican. I don't look like one, but there is a Republican politician who said, when you're fighting for what is right, the end result is not an issue, you are a winner. We are all fighting for what is right, so we are all winners here. But I have to say that I was very disappointed by everything I hear from the panel, because I hear several names, people put on trial tonight, including Obama, the President of the United States, and many other African presidents put on trial. I didn't come here to put people on trial. I came here to hear a plan for Africa. And my question to the panel is, what is the plan they have to change what's going on? Because the other side have a plan. They have a plan. We know about their plan. I'm just gonna.
Your time is expired. Sirs.
That's not right.
No, it is right. We said 45 seconds. Come on. I'm gonna do that. This mother speak. I know her from a Cobra. So ask me. Go ahead.
Cobra is the National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America and throughout the diaspora. I'm also with WADU, a Pan-Africanist organization. And Baba immediately wanted me to invite you all to an Africa Day on the Hill. That's one plan of action, and I would ask if any of you would work with us to make that a success. Africa Day on the Hill, to talk about what we, in September, and we can get the information to Randy and all of you, so that we can make our presence felt in the halls of Congress. Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions from Mr. Bailey. Quick question. So we talked about incorporating the youth into whatever movement we move forward. But what that young man spoke on the ground, whether on the ground here or on the continent, a lot of young people, whether it's factual or not, feel that way. You know. So how can we incorporate them into a movement without speaking over them? Just a quick question on your suggestion on that.
Before, I have no problems with it, but I want the young people who are ready to move.
You're right.
The ones that I have to persuade, I'll deal with them later.
That's right.
I spent too much time in the 60s and 70s doing that.
That's right.
Trying to spend hours after hours instead of organizing, as I said before, if what is needed now is a conference to organize a Pan-Africanist movement, not to get a whole bunch of variety of opinions. You only come if you believe in Pan-Africanism as a concept.
Absolutely.
Now that young man and people like him, somewhere down the line, I'll be ready to talk to them. But right now, I want to get the young people who are ready to organize a Pan-Africanist type movement in this country.
Yes.
Thank you very much. My question actually was going to be for Chioma to answer because it's about AFRICOM, but I completely understand why she had to leave. She's got her priorities right, and I applaud her. So I hope the rest of the panel will stand in for her. And it's a very simple question. AFRICOM doesn't have a permanent headquarters. They are looking for it. They would like to put it in Africa. I happen to believe that the first battle we can win against AFRICOM is to make sure that it has no headquarters on the continent. There are cities in the United States, Atlanta being one, South Carolina, the state of South Carolina also wants it. So I'm asking the panel, do they think it's a good idea to make the battle to ensure that AFRICOM's headquarters is in the United States? Do they think that is the first battle that we must win to prevent AFRICOM from getting the headquarters in Africa?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Again, very quickly, I'm as a journalist myself, and as a person who believes, who believes in the gathering and distribution of information, and in the need for us to have an intelligence operation. I think the way we handle that kind of thing with these newspapers is to monitor them very closely. And when they present information on Africa that is false or distorted, we respond to them right away.
Like the Jews.
I would be prepared to work with a group of people who are ready to start monitoring the Washington Post, the New York Times, and the Wall Street Journal. These are the three national newspapers in this country. And of course, later on, we might get people to also do the same with the television programs. But the only way to respond to that is to know, for them to know that there are people out there who are watching and listening and monitoring what they are printing and how they're printing information about the continent.
I have one last question. You do the honors.
My name is Joseph Trapon, but my question is directed towards Mr.
Peter Bailey.
Bailey and Mr. Maurice. I'm one of those kids that wants to do something. I'm from the Congo, and I use technology to get my point across. I currently have a group on Facebook, but the problem is, how can the youth do something when people don't want to hear our voice?
Exactly, my brother. That's what this brother is doing right now. That's why I want to come here. Exactly. That's the problem. That's why we're not going forward.
Thank you for the question, brother.
You are a boy.
Okay. Thank you for the question. Friends of the Congo is made up predominantly of young Congolese. Our national spokesperson, Kambale Musabuli, is a young Congolese. From Los Angeles to Seattle, Atlanta, we have young Congolese who are working on the outside to mobilize their fellow Congolese and other Africans. So you're welcome to join our effort. We're looking for speakers. If you like to speak, you have a platform to speak with our organization. You go through training, a list of literature that you have to go through, and you can be a part of our Speakers Bureau. We also use technology. Definitely come friend us on Facebook, join us on YouTube, Twitter. One of the projects that we have is establishing an information infrastructure inside the Congo among young Congolese. We ship laptops, cell phones, digital cameras. We raise funds so that they can have internet access and develop an information infrastructure so that they can communicate with each other. So you can bring your technology expertise and know-how to bear on that project. If you want to go, we have delegations that go to the Congo each October to work with young Congolese. They do hip-hop, and they use hip-hop and theater and dance as a means to teach social justice. So if you'd like to be a part of the delegation, we have one going this October. There's already one young Congolese sister. She was born outside of the Congo, has not been back, but she's going to take the opportunity to go back with us to join with our brothers and sisters inside the Congo. So there's a tremendous opportunity for you to be engaged in using your talents and using your skills, irrespective of your age, to be a part of the process with our organization. And I know a number of other organizations who are involved in such efforts as well. But I mean, I can go on and on about young people being engaged. So friendsofthecongo.org, you come see me afterwards. I'll give you a business card, and then we can get started. Oh, he's got one ready to go.
Yeah.
Vous l'avez découvert ici. Encore un hit que vous avez découvert. Ivoire TV. Ivoire TV.